New Vox article on why we lost. Oh, right. You need a membership for literally everything now. That's so cool. I can't imagine these memberships make them that much money. TikTok is making young voters more Republican? Oh, this is like a law. Oh, okay. This isn't like a data point or anything. I think people just don't want to talk about right-wing media capture because it's such a big problem and they don't know how to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to go like, oh, here's something Kamala Harris could have done differently. Here's something that they could have changed. Here's a different strategy they could have taken. But then it's like, well, no, in reality, it's literally like trillions of dollars held in the hands of a small number of people who control everything, and they didn't want Kamala Harris to win. Now, could Kamala Harris have done way better fighting Trump? Sure, absolutely, 100%, and she should have. But, like, the real underlying problem here is a lot greater. My problem is that the accusation you're listening to propaganda is just not an easy angle. Yeah, oh yeah, that's true. It's not very, like, informative. It's not a good argument to lead on. You know, you're trying to convince a person of like, well, what could have been done better? Well, maybe if they changed the media landscape. Like, okay. It's not very concrete. It's not very material. Well, it's very material, but it comes across as abstract because it's so big. It's like asking a fish how the water tastes, you know? I certainly don't think we're going to get fair elections in 2026. So, I mean, we'll see. It's not about likability. I mean, maybe we will. Democrats lost the most ground with politically disengaged voters, immigrants, and young people. If every registered voter had turned out, Democrats would have lost by more. TikTok appears to make its users more Republican, non-white moderates, and conservative. Probably didn't help that TikTok literally colluded with the Trump administration and did a fake TikTok buy then unbuy, or like a ban then unban at the last second, where they literally had a message shown to like 100 million Americans. Thank you, glorious God Emperor President Super Trump, for single-handedly saving TikTok before he was even the president. You know, like that's not a problem with TikTok, like as an institution. That's a problem with oligarchy. You know, gender gap among young voters was historically massive. Democrats lost voters' trust in the economy and cost of living. Democrats' most effective message in 2024 was an economically populist one. Donald Trump is leaning into the most unpopular parts of his agenda. Democratic constituencies are much more vulnerable than Republican ones to AI-induced unemployment. Is TikTok still even tied to China at this point? I mean, to the extent that it always was, right? But it's not like... That's just kind of immaterial. It's not really descriptive of what the issue is. Whatever happened at the selling of TikTok. It was a fake political stunt. Basically, what I'm saying here is that it's good and all to have good arguments, but at the end of the day, power is what matters. That's it. Like, it's there. You have to understand that. And I know it's a little bit disheartening because I think that everyone, and I've struggled with this so much throughout my career and also just in my personal life. I've always thought, like, in so many instances, you know, I have a good idea. I have a good argument. I have a good position. If people would just listen to me, I could convince them. And unfortunately, life isn't that kind. In reality, no. Just not true. A huge number of German adults still believed everything that Hitler told them after Germany lost the war, despite being shown evidence of the concentration camps, the fact that their country was literally annihilated because of Hitler. A lot of them, tens of millions of them, still believed after the war that he was right. And it's like, well, yeah, it turns out like it's not about the argument. I mean, it's partly about the argument, but it's more about how the argument is delivered, namely, overwhelmingly. You need a complete control over the media landscape, the way Republicans have right now. The oligarchs have bought everything, folded everything into the apparatus that they use to control people, you know? You won't win over this with good arguments. Even Democrats, as they are now, tepid, stupid, weak, inconsistent, whatever, they have better arguments than Republicans. By a mile. Doesn't matter. It's not enough. There's a reason. We often say the bar is higher for Democrats. Why do Republicans get to be so obviously dishonest? Why do they get to tank the economy? Why do they still get votes? And a lot of it is just because the oligarchs kind of have always been on their side. There's always been more money circulating in their camp. So for that reason, they get to make the bad arguments. Oh, their arguments on how like the climate change should not only like continue but be exacerbated. Those ones are like winning out 51 to 49 at the ballot box. How? Why? Well, because they're spending tens of millions of dollars on it. They're the ones who are coordinating like fake scientific studies with Chevron and ExxonMobil, and coordinating that with like Christian organizations that are giving money to churches to disseminate like the satanic global warming narrative, or and they're the ones like coordinating with independent thought leaders and pundits who are talking about the Democrats like insane messaging on climate change. Meanwhile, the Democrats are just like, yeah, the scientists have proven that climate change is real. And it's like, that's great, man. You're correct, but that's not enough. I hear you, but Kamala raised $1 billion and outraised Trump. Yeah, well, that was with the campaign itself. Donald Trump benefited from, I would argue, tens of billions of dollars of outside campaign influence. You could never buy an ad as effective as that TikTok stunt right before the election. Or, say, Elon buying Twitter, which was tens of billions of dollars. Also, Kamala Harris spends most of that money on, like, ad buys, which don't work. Ad buys are, like, proven not that effective. What, you see, like, a TV advertisement? Are you kidding me? That shit's more effective for Republicans, because Republicans tend to be older, or at least they used to be. It doesn't work, you know? They need to have a broader scale, like a superstructure. But you said the right owned the media anyway, so the Democrats never really had a shot. Well, they could have worked more to build that power. Do you have any idea how many people there are that get their news and messaging from people like Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, Russell Brand, the Daily Wire people? Democrats are more than capable, if they wanted to, of fielding and constructing that kind of like media superstructure. An enormous amount of power, not in just like owning Twitter or whatever, but in disseminating and constructing and building off of. Why do you think it is that like right-wing influencers get to go to Fox News all the time? Why is Riley Gaines, whose claim to fame is being bad at swimming, able to go and become like a super influencer for the right? Because they build off their own power. Meanwhile, by far the largest and I would say most culturally relevant independent left-leaning content creator, Hassan, will never be treated seriously by the Democrats, in part because the Democrats are oppositional to left populist messaging, and in part because of the Israel bit. But even then, they don't work on that. There's not like a synchronous view. And I understand that Hassan, of course, would bristle at the idea of being a Democratic Party stooge, and I think that's valid on his part. But I think that if there was an avenue to use the Democratic Party's soapbox to promote things like labor rights, and they were willing to work with independent figures to do so, I think Hassan, and I know myself, would be willing to jump on that. Now, if they wanted us to be like, you know, muzzled little dogs to the narrative and never criticize Israel or whatever, then no, probably not. But that's like, again, you know, that's their fault. Why did they chain themselves to that position? Republicans get to be more hawkish on Israel because they're pro-evil. They like evil things. They like death. Democrats shouldn't. They're on the other side of that. They just happen to kowtow to Israel because of the shared MIC, you know, influence. The TikTok fake ban was after the election, before inauguration. Did I say election or inauguration? Sorry, I meant inaugurate. My apologies, not election inauguration. No, it was the inauguration, right? Yeah, it was an election talking point, but the actual thing was inauguration. Destiny gets invited onto Piers Morgan. I think Hassan has too. Yeah, I've gotten invited like 6 times. I hate that guy. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Piers Morgan is just like a low IQ debate monger grifter. Like that's not building power. That's just like getting a bunch of monkeys thrown into a gladiatorial arena for YouTube views. And he's British. I say, you know, spitting. Piers Morgan's also decidedly right-wing. Oh, God, of course, absolutely. Well, I mean, he's decidedly spineless, but, you know, that's his only firm position. And do you all understand what I'm talking about here? It's not just about having the money. It's that Republicans have invested in a quote-unquote independent, you know, like media infrastructure, and Democrats are hostile to it. I think Schumer was like in case you're wondering why we lose to Republicans, here's one of the senior Democrats.
I don't think we have an authenticity problem. I don't think we have an authenticity problem. We have a real direction now. I feel good about it. I am hopeful that our Republican colleagues will resume working with us. And I talk to them. One of the places I told them to go in the gym, you know, when you're on that bike in your shorts, panting away next to a Republican, a lot of the inhibitions come off.
So the deep homoeroticism of this aside, like, I mean, I know it would be very funny if he wasn't like killing all of us, like if he wasn't stabbing us over and over until we died. It would be a little bit more funny. Old man Yowie's back. True. Does Schumer go to the gym? Lots of old guys do. Old guys love stationary bikes. Anyway, when you have a Democratic Party with leadership like that, it makes sense that they haven't really invested in a kind of... They haven't like built the power that you would need to contest the Republicans. I do not think that the fact that oligarchs have sided with Republicans is like an end of it's like a guaranteed victory for them at all. I don't even remotely believe that. However, you do need to do more against that than literally nothing. I appreciate your optimism, but it does get quite disheartening at times. I'm not being optimistic. I'm just telling you how I feel. I think this shit sucks, man. Well, you did. I listen. I understand what you're saying, Vosh, but I'm still disheartened. How do you think my heart's doing? Optimism. I'm fighting for my life over here. I'm trying to keep my head above the water. All right. I'm just telling you how I feel. I'm crashing the f out. I don't know about you.